We are live.
And it's about time.
I know. I know. You're so patient with me and you always find time. You always really stay in flow state. You've taught me that really well and you live it. So
Well, it's interesting. Flow is such an interesting state because it's right next to anxiety.
it's so true. It's
But the thing about it is, when you're in anxiety, it just means you need to up your skill level, and you up your skill level and keep the level of competitiveness and challenge up, and you'll go into flow. That is the way you get there.
so question about that though. You just triggered something.
Okay.
How does that play into those that have high functioning anxiety?
Well, again, it's a question of, well, it probably is something around self believing in yourself.
Mhm.
Because people who have high functioning anxiety, I find generally speaking, are often people who have high skill sets, but they don't believe it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and they don't believe in themselves, and so they're looking for something outside of themselves to kind of validate them.
Mhm.
But ultimately, and I know that ultimately you're going to have to validate yourself, and you're going to have to believe in yourself. So I would say, I've been around people like that. I've probably been like that, and didn't really realize it because you're crazy when you're in that kind of a state, and when you're crazy, you have no idea about what's going on with you. It's all what's going on with the rest of the world.
Mhm.
But my experience and my looking at it is people with that kind of high level of anxiety that you asked the question about. What a great question, by the way, is that uh, how we know we get to flow. Just the principle of how you get to flow is it's a function of uh, the relationship between the degree of difficulty, shall we say, and your skill set. And when something is very difficult and you have a low skill set, you're going to be in anxiety.
Mhm.
The answer to that is get more training. If you happen to be in business, it's real simple. Just, you got people who are displaying anxiety. Give them more training in the areas that will actually help them, because anxiety wants to match. It wants to actually match the skill set. So the more the skill set,
Mhm.
the best. The interesting thing is high skill set and low challenge,
Mhm.
it causes boredom.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only does it cause boredom, but people turn into tyrants and dictators because they know, and they know that they know, because it's all too easy. There's not enough challenge for them. And the answer for people who are bored is raise their challenge level. But for people who are in anxiety, as a function of their challenge level is perceived to be high, raise their skill set. This is the way that we want to get people into flow. And getting people into flow is really the answer to productivity.
So I have two reflections and reactions off of what you just said.
Okay.
From the boredom standpoint, one of the other things that I have found personally, because I have been in situations where I
Sure you
felt
have.
stationary, but I felt I had more to give, more to
Yes.
honor, all those kind
Yes.
of things. You create process for process sake. You create tangents of work that make you feel like you're applying things, but you're really not. And what you're doing is you're further complicating a system that can be ever more simplified. And
Yeah,
I find it
that's a
happens a lot.
yeah, that's a bingo. That is absolutely a bingo. Particularly for those of us who have found out that, like, you need to be in action, you need to be doing something, you need to be, like that. So we make up busy work.
Mhm.
The question really gets down to, are my actions of designed towards efficiency, or are they designed towards effectiveness?
I like that.
In the world of what we want to do, we want to actually distinguish efficiency versus effectiveness. Efficiency is good.
Mhm.
That means you're good in time. You'll get the job done by a certain amount of time. For example, uh, 2-minute drill training in professional football is an efficiency exercise.
Mhm.
and it's becoming effective in the realm of against time.
Mhm.
So people who are good at that, are the kind of they pay them a lot of money because they're good at that. Well, business has its own 2-minute drill, and life has its own 2-minute drill as well. But it's not about efficiency, it is about effectiveness. And about effectiveness, the way that you create effectiveness for people
Mhm.
is not by driving them harder, but actually by creating space for them and allowing them to make mistakes and then correct from their mistakes.
Expand to include and lead with leadership forward, not management forward.
Yeah, I like that. And I quoted you several times this week when in the areas of all in, lean in, fail fast, fail forward.
Yeah, fall forward fast.
Yeah, fall forward fast. Yeah. Well, I
It's
almost quoted you that.
yeah, it still makes sense. Yeah, that everything you're saying resonates, and I lived, and I also saw others go on those tangents. And I'm a big believer in nudging people, but letting people be who they want to be and really honor
Yep.
where they're at.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it took me a while to get there because as an athlete, I would say one of the drawbacks, but you can turn it into a positive that I found was I know how to win. But just because I know
Yep.
how to win doesn't necessarily make it the right path or set of pathways to the promised land, let's call it. There may
Yeah.
be other perspectives and ways of doing things that are actually smarter, not harder, that can get you there, but maybe you're fixed in your thinking because all you care about is just winning. So I had to break that fixedness for myself, which I did. But then I also realized in breaking that fixedness, you can nudge people, you can offer for consideration, but you can't make decisions for people. There's a chance and a choice, and people have to choose their heart.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. And I think that there's also another aspect of that, Sammy, which is you can't make me.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah, good point. That goes without saying.
I mean, talented people.
Yeah.
In football a few years ago, there was an extremely talented wide receiver named Terrell Owens, T.O.
Okay.
And he was an incredible, and there were a batch of them,
Mhm.
but T.O. was really particularly interesting because he was, you can't make me. I'm going to do it my way.
Mhm.
And it didn't always. Well, he ended up getting passed around to 5 or 6 different teams, mainly because he couldn't work with the quarterback and the coach. That's kind of fatal for a wide receiver.
Yeah. And let me go back to the other reflection, right? So we talked about
Yeah.
the boredom side of the house, but to the
Right.
anxiety part, that's an
Okay.
interesting concept
Okay.
because as an athlete, we are more than equipped, capable, and prepared to lead because of our experiential skill sets. I am a firm believer that we're built by sport. It really affords us an understanding of finite and infinite games in a multitude of different ways through life
Yep.
as we
Yep.
as we engage. But one of the biggest things is you said where anxiety comes to light, where you have something that requires more than your skill sets and you have anxiety to figure out how do I bridge that gap or can I, and you get overwhelmed. Well, athletes, what's interesting is maybe on paper the skills on paper you don't have, but you are more than equipped, capable, and prepared for the competencies, the attitudes, the behaviors, the value set to operate at this champion world class level. You
Yes.
have to figure out how to bridge the gap up and learn the skills. You can be taught skills, you cannot be taught values.
Yep.
You just can't.
You can be
So
taught skills. You cannot be taught values. That's really interesting. Say some more about that.
so skills, right? You can learn, a craftsman wasn't always a craftsman at birth. They learned, they
Right.
tried things. Baseball players, football players, soccer players, a mom. You're not a perfect mom out of the gate, but you progress as you have your second child, your third child. Same thing as a father, right? You learn as you go. You learn skills, you learn efficiencies to
Uh-huh.
be able to implement to work smarter, not harder. You understand the power of we. You understand the community. You understand that you can get answers from anywhere, and then you can decipher based off of your value compass what fits your household, what fits your team system. Values, right? And we talk about values embedded storytelling. Values are part of your DNA, it's part of your makeup. You experience the external world and stuff feels right, stuff feels wrong. You start to craft your thinking around what do I really think versus what mom and dad think. Do I
Hmm.
challenge that thinking? Do I
Hmm.
evolve? Right? Do I agree with this? Am I traditional? Do I like traditional? Do I want to be completely radical, eliminate things, do things new? You learn as you go, and as that happens, the underlying aspect to who you are has a value makeup, right? So not everyone can be a Navy SEAL, but everybody has every right to do the best that they deem appropriate in life. Everyone has that birthright to be able to make it their own, right? Whether it goes left or right or forward, you can make it your own. But
Yeah, the way I look at it, and I like what you're saying. I think that's rich. And you said it's in your DNA. I think it's actually uh maybe, but for sure it's in your acculturation. You're born into a culture no matter who you are. You're born into a particular kind of culture. And by the time you're 3 or 4 or 5 years old, you have absorbed an enormous amount, even, by osmosis, you have absorbed an enormous amount of the culture of your family and the culture, if you are born into a house where mom and dad are fighting, you get that in the womb and you come out like, kind of messed up. And it's pre-language, so you can't really get at it to talk your way through it and have people understand so they end up on a couch at 35 talking to somebody who's taken their money and nothing's happening with them. But in fact, you are born into a culture, and it behooves us to actually really pay attention. And as a matter of fact, to be one of those ones who is uh, uh, taking the responsibility to cause the culture to be something that's going to be, for want of a better term, a winning culture for everybody involved. That's what teamwork is. That's what being on a team is. That's what the job of all of the coach, all the way down to the water boy,
Mhm.
who, by the way, usually is really good at the culture part. Maybe not so good at throwing and catching, but really good at the
Yeah.
culture part, or else they wouldn't be the water boy or the bat boy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a good correction on your part. When I say part of your DNA,
Uh-huh.
I'm not thinking or articulating it from a scientific point of view of how
Uh-huh.
people think of DNA, but in terms of how you morph, how you grow, how your brain changes. They always say they're always watching. Your kids are always watching because they're in learn mode. They're computers. They're
You know what? I just
full of energy.
realized. I just realized what DNA means when somebody is like funky.
Hmm.
I just realized what it means. It actually means dirty, nasty attitude.
How do you come up with this stuff?
I don't
I love it. You
know.
get it, right? I mean, that's what I mean. You have external world, subconscious, conscious. You have different
Yep.
aspects and
Yep.
layers to it that
Yep.
play into it
Yep.
that I'm not even really diving
It
into.
comes through all the senses: see, sense,
E-
see, hear,
Exactly.
smell, taste,
And
feel.
that's why I'm a big on write it down. There's a
Yes.
permanency to writing something down. It's forever written down. It's permanent.
Well, not only that, but you put yourself through some sort of physical motion that actually imprints it on you too.
100%. Couldn't agree
Because
more.
you're looking at it, you're saying the words to yourself, you're writing it conscious. There's a certain kind of bringing yourself to consciousness when you do write it down. I'm with you. I don't care if you never go back and check your notes, write it down.
Yeah, it registers differently. And I am also the way I view myself and how I learn. I feel
Uh-huh.
like I'm an AI computer because I'll take different pieces, and what I
Uh-huh.
believed to be true yesterday may
Uh-huh.
have some tweak or may have a leg on it that could take me down to this, because I am in full discovery mode all the time. I love
Uh-huh.
it. I engulf in it. I want to learn from others. And what has become the highlight to overcome anxiety when I didn't have on paper the skill sets was getting in proximity with world class champions like yourself,
Yep.
right? And
Yep. Yep.
just because I can do it doesn't mean I should. And when
Well,
those things really started to click for me, my life changed.
well, and what you pointed to, because you're exactly right, not just because you do it doesn't mean you should. It's also, and if I can't do it, maybe I better get myself around people who can.
Yes.
Like you said, you're in discovery mode all the time. You will learn the trick.
Yeah.
You will learn the way
And
to get it done.
that's where athletes really shine, right? We don't talk
Yes,
about
I
all the
say so
soft
too.
skills.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And especially for team sports, I even challenge people who say, well, tennis, it's an individual sport, or golf. No, it's not. It takes a
No, it's
village.
not.
There's a whole host of people that are impacting the efficiency of that player and the experience of that player. So I always challenge
Oh,
that.
oh man.
But
You don't think it's a team sport and you happen to be married, you better have a happy marriage because you will find out right away. It's a team sport and team
yeah.
starts at home.
Yeah. And it's just, for me, I think being actually hands on applying these concepts, but it really, the ahas coming later on in life, which is okay.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes when you're in it, you don't realize what it means or what it stands for until you understand that you can pause to reflect and have your Fridays to,
As you
what
said,
did I learn?
yeah, yeah. Well, exactly as you said, like the ahas come later. When you're involved in the process, it's just an ongoing, got it,
Mhm.
got it, got it. Oh, okay, got it, got it, got it. And then then when you actually have an opportunity to reflect, you can go, aha, duh, wow. You can do that whole process there.
Shazam.
Shazam.
Yeah, you're
Like what was his name? Gomer Pyle. Shazam.
oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna cut that clip out where you just said that, and I'm gonna create like one of those like audios, and I'm gonna have it on a video. Shazam, Shazam.
Shazam.
Oh, I can't. Well, yeah, so initially I wanted to talk about course correction and all this, but there's a lot to explore here that maybe I take for granted that I've come into some ahas, but I definitely hear more often than not the toggle between anxiety and boredom, and the ability to take ownership, to also put yourself in proximity to different spaces, even if it's outside of your comfort.
You know, a smart guy a long time ago said the truth will set you free. And it's a good principle in life. And
Yeah.
one of the things where the truth will set you free is telling, look, am I in apathy? Am I like bored? Am I anxious or whatever? And where do I want to go? And mapping myself to getting there. Knowing that it's just a function of the level of challenge against the level of skill,
Yeah.
and ramping those up. It's almost unbelievably uh, uh, human beings can take their challenge to and their skill set to an unbelievably high level. Uh, I'm constantly, if you want to have fun, if you want to have a really fun 3 or 4 minutes, uh, go to your YouTube
Hmm.
and dial in world champion yo-yo, the world yo-yo champion, some Asian cat, Japanese cat. Unbelievable what he's doing, with a yo-yo. Now,
Okay.
you look at it and you go, well, yo-yo, what a silly thing. But you could say the same thing about baseball, you know, and I'm sorry, but baseball's a real deal, and so is yo-yo. But if you want to see somebody and see how good somebody can get at something that you cannot do, That will be, you will, it'll put a smile on your face, and you will walk away from it just grinning. And it
Oh yeah.
inspires you in terms of people, because here's a guy, how often did he have to correct? How often did he have to kind of like, who's there to teach you how to do that? You know, and especially when you get creative and you start making stuff up with it.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing is true. The same thing is true in the realm of I'm a huge fan of a runner this year named Abby Steiner. And Abby Steiner is just killing it as far as I'm concerned. Now, she may or may not be the fastest in the world. She was the fastest in the NCAA.
Hmm.
And she just turned pro. And I think she's just coming into her own. And
Hmm.
she's just getting fast. There's also a gal named Caitlin Toohey, who's a long distance runner, who is unbelievable and is 14 years old
Yeah.
and is crushing it like that. When you take a look at this, I saw an interview of Caitlin's, and she said, well, you know, that was when I was 12 and 13, and I wasn't really fast then. But
Hmm.
there was something that happened, something between her ears that got translated to her body, where she went from mediocre at best to one of the fastest in the world at the age of 14. And, you know, I'm thinking that's available to all of us.
That's true. I believe that.
You know, it's your birthright. Where is it? I mean, where do you want to be fast? And maybe, you know, when I'm saying fast, I'm saying it like a metaphor. Where is it that you want to be extraordinary? Where is it that you want to be beyond extraordinary and carry yourself into the category of being elite?
Yeah.
That's your birthright.
Yeah. And I find more often than not, people, if you actually spent the time to just think, maybe 2 minutes a day, and the
Uh-huh.
cumulative aspect of thinking over time will
Uh-huh.
help you figure out what that purpose is, what that capacity of greatness is for you. But this is the interesting thing about it, John. Just because you know what it is, there's something that has to switch that says, I'm going to take the first step. And that piece is really where champions and world class are versus most never even get to.
I am with you 1,000%. I really am. You know, it is no accident that you know, Lao Tzu once said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Yeah.
You know, and he tells a story about a person going to one side of the mountain to the other side of the mountain. And every time they went to the side of the mountain, he picked up a rock and he took it to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, he had a huge mountain of rocks
Oh yeah.
on the other side. Well, that's what's up for us.
Mm-hmm.
What's up for us is we're carrying the rocks over the mountain to the other side, and we're trying to build a life. We're trying to build something extraordinary, be it a business, be it being an exceptional athlete, being an exceptional father or mother, being an exceptional citizen. Whatever it is that you say to yourself, why is it that you would actually dial it in that what you are going to be is mediocre? I don't think anybody ever woke up and said, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be mediocre. No, nobody ever said that. They not only wanted to be a fireman or a doctor or an athlete, they wanted to be NBA quality. They wanted to be LeBron. They wanted, you know, when kids model who they are when they're out playing with a basketball, it's not Billy Jones, it's LeBron, you know, regardless. You know, they're being that person. And that way of being is what actually inspires us to correct, because every time I try to be LeBron, I'm not LeBron, but I never stop trying to be LeBron.
Mm-hmm. You know, I find that interesting that you say that. One of the ways I mentally charge myself up,
Uh-huh.
challenge myself up, because I always find it's important to talk about it like we are, but it's also important to show how our tools, our different
Right.
styles that we come to our capacity of greatness. Because John, we're very similar but very different. We
Yes.
we see the world, in different lenses, and we have things we agree, we have things we don't agree, but collectively we've built something pretty epic together in relationship. And the biggest thing for me is I get to I get to do things,
Yes.
and I get to go to the gym. So when I go to the gym, I don't care if I am tired. I don't care if I want to do it or I don't want to do it. I get to do it. I get to make that choice to be great. And those
That's right.
individual 1% better every day culminates into the game changer. So when I step foot on the outside part of any gym, of any boardroom, of any interaction that I value every single interaction I have, even if it doesn't come out the way people are comfortable with skipping along. I'm okay with not agreeing with people. I'm okay with agreeing with people. But when I am outside of the room, it is a very clear thing that goes off in my head. If I'm talking to someone, I will ask for permission to speak freely if we want to talk about, or if I'm going to challenge something, just to clear the room and make sure that I have the permission to be able to assert myself. The other thing I do is I look around and I say, well, rent is due today, and I'm going to do hard things. Rent is due, and I am earning my right. So, guess what? This is one of many steps today that is going to lead me to my capacity of greatness. So, rent is due, and guess what? I have to pay my dues.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And there are three kind of elements that we always want to have present as we're doing this,
Mhm.
because you don't do life alone, you do it with other human beings.
Agree?
And the three elements are respect, dignity, and uncommon courtesy.
Yeah. Well said.
That's really,
Well
kind of
said.
the secret.
Well said. Yeah, it's approaching life with an urgency,
Yes,
action,
yes,
a listen to hear, not listen to speak mentality, and
yes,
the ability to the ability to pause, reflect, action, change, correct, and also galvanize others to be in support of what you are doing. So then you can then lead to the next aspect and stepstone and leave your mark, but let others make it their own. That is true impact and empowerment.
I will tell you something. You just triggered something I hadn't thought about for a long time. But my coach, my teacher, a guy named Jerome Downs, said, "John, stop, change, start."
I love that. I used to use that.
It's so good.
No, we did that. So that was a tool set we actually implemented at Honeywell. And it was a chart that said change, start, stop. And it had your whole entire business, your process, your programs, everything on there. And you put your perspective of what you should change, what you should stop, and what you should start. And you can't start a bunch of stuff until you stop a bunch of stuff,
That's right.
or you change a bunch of stuff, right? This is not just addition. This is also subtraction, right? This is also simplifying before streamlining. A
That's
lot of
right.
times people just want to problem solve, but they don't just take a moment to assess the baseline to say, well, Sammy, yeah, you're competitive, but why did you go that route? Well, because I like to do hard things. Well, there's another way to do it. And oh, you just never tried it. You don't know what you don't know. So it goes into the levels of learning for me of, oh no, I'm triggered because am I unconsciously incompetent on something? And then I kind of scatter a little, and then I get back in and say, hey, guess what? Wake up. This isn't about you. Humble yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
So
That's
those
really
are the
good.
things I actually go through every day.
I think that there's something that you could say that champions have in common, that they actually have to wake up to at a certain point in their career and in their kind of their arc of their development.
Okay.
That is, the champions actually like doing hard stuff,
No doubt.
and they like doing it the hard way.
No
It's
doubt.
like, if I can find a hard way to do it, I will go for that. That seems like the fun way. But that's not necessarily when you get to a certain point where you're arcing through and you're getting mature in your champion world-class kind of conversation, like really getting kind of at home in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then for one thing, one of the things that you're generally doing when you get to there is you're turning around and giving it away to other people on the way up, giving them a hand up, you're coaching,
Yep.
you're mentoring and so on like that. But for you to get to that place where you learn that although I like to do things the hard way, that's not necessarily the way.
Yeah. And that's where I came up with the thinking of, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, because
Uh-huh.
it's really a challenge to
Very good.
a lot of us athletes who know how to win. And we cloud ourselves in thinking clearly because we're just so tunnel visioned on winning. And it's not even about the W itself. It's about the feeling of being able to overcome something that someone didn't think you could do. So that's why we
Yeah,
choose the hard
well, I
thing.
think that it's something that has a kind of ubiquity about it, and it shows up in so many areas of life. Guys make it into the NBA, and there are so many of them that have made $100 million and lost it all and are living on the streets now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so just because you can do drugs, sex, and rock and roll doesn't mean you should.
Yep. Agree.
And it's really interesting to watch the people who kind of keep their nose clean, at least to some tolerable point, so that they can stay in the game. Because first of all, what got you there is what got you to be the best of the worst. And the question is, how do you get to be the worst of the best and start working your way up?
Yep. And that's what I
Because
call the bottom of the
when I
top.
get into the NBA, I am the worst of the best.
Bottom of the top. Yep.
Bottom of the top. And the job is to work my way up. My solution to all that is do your daily boxes.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I love that, because I live my life always wanting to be at the bottom of the top of that next level, of that next
Yes.
level, of that next
Yes.
level. And I
Yes.
want to be in proximity with rogue scholars, with
Yes.
innovators, with doers, with the outside world thinking they're crazy, but they take on a lot. I want to
Yes.
be submerged with that. And what I'm starting to realize is, as I aspire to emulate it every single day, not when I have a bad day, I still emulate it, right? Like I am working to world class, period. I am working feverishly to that, because
Yeah.
I am at the bottom of the top again. Like I'm
Well, you want to make it your standard, because once you've made that your standard, you have a new ideal.
exactly.
So once you've made special your standard, then you've got an ideal called extraordinary. Once you've made extraordinary your standard, you've got a new ideal called elite, and so on. Elite to, champion as the standard to world class. World class is the standard to world champion.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Pitt, they did some branding and I really like it. Building champions committed to excellence. So
Oh, good.
I love
Good.
that. But I don't want to say but, I don't like that word. If I progress that further, the way I view it is one further, and it says building world class champions
Yes.
committed to excellence.
Yes. I will tell you, that was always my experience. I've watched Pitt for years, particularly in football.
Mm-hmm.
And World class was the answer. There were so many people that graduated out of there and into the bigs,
Oh yeah.
went to the dance.
Big, are you kidding me? Yes. I mean, it's most, it's funny.
And it was really, had the most extraordinary coaching
Yes.
situation going on
Yeah.
there and so on like that. Lost it in a heartbeat. It's kind of like, oh, we had the Pitt's version of Tucker Carlson going on here.
Well, it's interesting because you have a culture that is foundationally strong, was
Yes,
committed to being who they were, right? And it was every bit of a blue collar town that immersed themselves and supported. It's really the city of champions. Like it really truly is. When you go there, you feel it. It's there. It's still there. The difference is we want to get away from talking about individual players. Like Pitt has great running backs. Oh,
yes,
Aaron Donald, right? Or
yes,
you've got, Kenny Pickett. Back in the day, when you had Mike Ditka, when you had Dorsett, when you had Marino, you didn't really talk about them individually. Yeah, they got the accolades, but it was always about that class.
it was
Always
it was
about that.
always at the world class. You could see it was going on. And the interesting thing is, Pitt is a culture. Pittsburgh is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the very, very interesting things about that city is the art, and in particular the performing arts, and in particular the ballet companies that are there. There are 2 or 3 regional ballet companies that are as good as there are anywhere on the planet. And you go, wow, what's going on? What's in the water?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's
You know,
there's been a lot of there's been a lot of tech that's come. There's been a lot of the arts, liberal arts. Carnegie Mellon's there. You've got Pitt there.
yeah,
You've got Carlo. You've got Duquesne. I mean, you really are immersed in a wide array. Like Pixar has a lot of stuff there. Robotics is huge at Carnegie Mellon.
it is. It
Research,
is.
modern MRI at Pitt. It's a research institution. So you've got such rich foundational blueprints across the whole city, So
That's right. That's right.
I'm
There's,
very fortunate.
and if you're born into that culture, you get to see, this is my birthright. Pick a vector and go.
Yes, pick a vector. Yes, I couldn't agree more. But what's interesting about that is most people don't see it like that.
Most
That are there.
people don't. And when you say most people don't, you actually mean 93 to 95%
Oh, easy,
don't.
easy.
You know, we're having a conversation that, if you really get present to it, is designed for the 3 to 5% of the people who do.
That's why
We're,
athletes
we're
come to
having
the
a
top often.
97 percentile conversation, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a business person, whether you're a scholar,
Yeah.
whatever you are. If you're interested in actually the practices, the virtuous practices that build the character, that have you actually express yourself at the world-class level,
Oh yeah.
this is the conversation for you. Otherwise, this is not. You should go somewhere else and listen to something that's easy and fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, and that's why it resonates with me so well, because I grew up with vector mentality. Let's just
Yes,
say it.
yes, you
I was
did.
immersed.
Yes, you
I
did.
really did. That was a priority in the household. Like I was immersed with a bunch of different styles of music. I was immersed with different cultural upbringings. Very traditional. I had family in Alabama. I have family in Georgia. I was also in Miami, which was a melting pot of different Hispanic cultures.
Yes,
I was immersed with different regions in Jamaica. I mean, it was just fantastic because I was able to get a lens that most people don't have the opportunity because of where they live, but I knew what an opportunity I had. So I leaned all the way into that and immersed myself and went to all the parties and did all the different things to learn. And I understood
yeah.
that I needed to get outside of the US bubble a bit.
Yeah, I would say that another way of looking at it is that your prefrontal was stimulated and your body went along for the ride.
Probably. Probably.
It's like, well, because there's no limit to what your what you can imagine.
Mhm.
And if there's no limit to it, and the tool that I've got is my body, it's coming along.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a time, and I mean, it goes on for quite a while, when you're immortal.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Listen, when you get on top of your game and you get really good at what you're doing,
Hmm.
you may not be the best on the planet, but you know that you're amongst them. There's a time when the feeling is you are immortal. Now you are not. And you can be taken out. You can have a car accident, or you can have an injury or something like that.
Hmm.
But if I have an injury, I had plenty of injuries when I was, in my career, but I was just, an immortal with an injury for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was about 35 that I actually began to realize, no, maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just, whatever. But that's what you're building yourself to.
Yeah.
You're building yourself to a point where it's like, well, this is where I belong. I've earned it,
Mhm.
and I'm going to go with it. I mean, I only have an inkling of what's going through Abby Steiner's mind, because you see, before the race, she stands by the blocks and she puts her hands on her hips, and she puts her head down, and she is just getting present to it.
She's zoned in.
She is bringing herself willfully into the zone. And then she gets into the block, and she has long hair, so she puts a big pigtail and she throws it back over the top, and she gets herself. And by the time she is on take your marks,
Hmm.
she is fully in the zone,
Oh yeah.
fully in the zone. And so is everybody with her, because she's running with world-class pros.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And then it's just unwind
Well, of course.
through the tape.
And I think the biggest takeaways from today, right, that are kind of coming to the forefront here. No
Uh-huh.
matter where you are in your stage, your career, in your thinking, in your reflection, in your abilities, or what you think are inabilities at this point. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about taking ownership and accountability for yourself and where your base
Yep.
state is,
Yep.
and putting
Yep.
yourself in proximity to others. If you don't have the skill set in proximity with others who do,
Yep.
guess what? You're going to feel some anxiety because you don't have the skill sets that other people have. But that is bringing you up. That is closing the gap the right way, because what you're doing is you're finding a way to get access to that room, which is hard to do because you don't have the skill set. So why, you sent me something the other day that really resonated with me. You may want to level yourself up, but why do those people who are already at another level want you to be included?
Listen, Michael Jordan was on a level offensively, and he was an extremely good defensive player. He won Defensive Player of the Year, et cetera, a couple of times, but he was not Dennis Rodman. And Dennis Rodman was on the just the evil team on the other side, Detroit. But they brought him over, and he was in effect Michael's coach, although they never talked. But Michael watched him, watched his ethic, watched him stand under the basket and watch the rotation of the ball coming in, so he knew which way to go when it rebounded, stuff like that. Watched him give up his body over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jordan became unbelievable defensively because of his coach, Dennis Rodman, who probably never said much to him at all.
Yeah,
You
so
can learn from anywhere.
you can, and you have to you have to take the first step. You have to start before you're ready, and
That's right.
you actually have to spend the 1 to 2 minutes a day to
Yep.
figure out who you are, why you are the way you are, and reflect. Learn
Yeah.
something about why you did something, challenge it, build upon it, right?
I
So,
love it. You put the big question of the day down somewhere. I saw and it was like, what is my purpose?
oh yeah.
Excellent excellent Tuesday question.
You know it. Come on. You've coached me up. I'm here. I'm in it.
Yeah,
Fall
yeah,
forward fast, baby. So
yeah.
yeah, I honestly, it's really taking ownership of your abilities to get to do things.
So,
And
so let's just kind of, okay, so we got a lot in and whatever, but I'll tell you what, make me excited. Tell me, what is it that you're up to? What are you doing this week? What are you going, where are you going? Because we're doing this kind of off the schedule a little bit because
yeah,
you got something special coming up. Tell us what it is.
I do. So I am getting in proximity with a bunch of world-class champions
Uh-huh.
that are former pro level athletes that are now pro in life and sports and in the corporate realm, and they're doing big things across a wide array of different industries. Some are entrepreneurs, some are CEOs, some are COOs, some are directors. And it's going to be great because I'm immersing myself from a title perspective. I am actually the bottom of the top versus all of them. But from an experiential skill set standpoint, we're really going to be able to value ping pong well and cross pollinate. So
Yeah, that's so great.
yeah, and it's so exciting because I'm going to do that, and right before I do that, I'm headed to Charlotte to record and do the last bow touches for Success Beyond Game Day launch. So I'm super pumped. And then I go
Yes.
to Pitt for alumni weekend. It's always important to say thank you and give back. You have to go back, right? This is not a 4 or 6 year deal. This is a forever thing, and Pitt really has afforded me such great opportunities and runways. So I'll forever go back.
Good for you. Good, good, good for you. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. What about you? What do you got up your sleeve?
Well, first of all, I'm getting together with a really, really close friend of mine who is going to be here for, I'm in Mexico, who's going to be here for another 8 or 10 days. And then he's taken off and he is going all over South America. So
Wow.
I'm expecting to get an email from him from Tierra del Fuego pretty soon,
Wow.
and the way he's doing it is he's doing it by bus. So I'm really excited to kind of be with him and share with him about what it is that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a business group in town. It's called the Rotary Club, and they found out I wrote a book, so they called me up and asked me if I'd come over
Oh,
give them a little speech. So that's what's coming up for me is go and talk to some people here in town
nice.
who nice folks and everything else like that. And we'll see how that goes.
Wow. Well, I'm excited for the week ahead. And as ever, thank you for being you. And thank you for always building something with me, no matter if it's not Thursday.
Always, always, always my pleasure. Always my pleasure, Sammy. I'm always honored and privileged to be with you, and I love the energy and the vibe. You rejuvenate me every time I'm around you, and
Good.
so it's a so like Martha Stewart used to say this thing. She said, "It's a good thing.
The good stuff. This is the good stuff.
This is the good stuff."
So I appreciate you. And as ever, I always do my little salute out to you.
Yep,
You're the
yep.
best to ever do it, my friend.
Okay, my darling. You take care, and I will see you after you have. I can't wait to hear.
I know. I'll probably text you.
Okay, great.
All righty. Bye.
Bye bye.